goal of the horoscope is the actualization of the sun sign. The other planets work together to unfold its destiny. The role of Mars in the chart is to protect and defend this process. It shows how we handle challenges in life. It's the way we go about getting what we want and the gratification of desires. What do we make of Mars when we find it in the sign of the Scorpion? Still waters run deep is a saying that's been around for thousands of years in one form or another. And it's the perfect description of this placement. It means that a quiet or placid manner conceals a more passionate and deep nature. In Shakespeare's time, it carried a darker meaning, and that was silent people are dangerous. They're mysterious, and mystery can be scary. After all, when we don't have enough information about something, or in this case, someone, the mind starts filling in gaps. Of course, Mars in Scorpio likes this. Being mysterious is a good defense for the Scorpion. Mystery is a kind of armor. Scorpio was, for most of its existence, associated with the planet Mars, but it was linked to the dark side of the god of war, the destructive phase of an already aggressive character. The underbelly here is not only destructive, but self-destructive. It has what's often called a death wish, a drive to hurt or kill oneself. I expand the term death wish to also include moments of seeing good opportunities, but snuffing out those options and creating not very convincing reasons to pass them up. Death wishes and all forms of self-destruction are on a continuum that looms large in the shadow of this Mars. A lack of intimate bonds is why people do this sort of thing. So human bonds are the remedy for the death wish. And here we reach the center of the maze because intimate bonds are anchored in vulnerability and trust. And yet the nature of this Mars is to trust little. Trust itself isn't dangerous, but taking the initial step in trusting is. There seems to be an ability for Mars in Scorp to hold back, take control, wait, and penetrate deeply when someone is most vulnerable. This power, the ability to wound with the stinger, is why Mars in Scorpio has to be kind and disciplined. In other words, self-aware. At its best, it takes raising its consciousness very seriously. This is an intense personality that tends to tuck into its shell. But in order to live fully, Mars in Scorp has to feel all the emotions that looking at reality brings up, all the sadness and the grief. They must grieve if they're to feel alive. That's one of the major tests. Can you be in this world and yet live fully and erotically as Mars in the 8th sign is meant to? It isn't easy because, as I've said before, Scorp tunes into darkness and people can be hateful. We live in a world of war. Anyone can get railroaded and end up rotting in a cell. You can fall on your face dead with your pants down. Maybe you'll just end up having to deal with the pretentious elite and float in a sea of bureaucrats who you know are full of shit. The planet is warming. Species are dying 6,000 a month. And if the air doesn't kill us, one day our great Earth will be sucked into the sun anyhow. Scorpio's nothing if not realistic. There's a kind of lyricism to the way things really are. And despite all the dangers, not living isn't an option for the high-functioning Mars in Scorpio. You see, its true drive is to change. As many difficulties come their way, they have a desire to adapt and become a new and more evolved creature, ultimately to the point of peace and no longer fearing death. The ability to change is their greatest power. Transformation often works like a compost heap, where a stinky pile of waste breaks down, creating rich soil from which new and vital things can grow. The energy of Mars in Scorpio turns what befalls them into a form of inner wealth. Likewise, this Mars is incisive. It's drawn to crisis and has no trouble taking action. In fact, it's the only water sign that needs to engage in battle. That stinger, which many people are afraid of, has a dual nature. Because a sting can injure us, yes, but it can also wake us up when we need it and enlighten us and raise our consciousness, even if it sometimes falls into power extremes and obsessive loops. They're also hard workers, but tend not to think of it that way. They just do what has to be done when it comes up. That's survival, and survival isn't a joke. Its power ultimately is in surrender. Why surrender? Because Mars in Scorp is tense, and surrender is the total release of that tension. Their tension is productive too. It keeps them on the move. It propels them into depth psychology, mysticism, magic, and the invisible metaphysical realm. Let's end with the masculine ideal, which is in this sign tough. He has grit and self-possession. It takes courage and bravery to enter the darkness and mess around in the layers of the human mind. He has a competitive Martian nature. He's shrewd, a good ally, and a smart strategist. This Mars is usually proud of how much he sees and how good his instincts are. The masculine ideal is deep and intense, a survivalist, at least in spirit, and sexually magnetic. A straight woman with Mars in Scorpio is usually strong-willed with a life and death level of intuition and survival instincts of her own. She's usually attracted to a serious masculine man because she's drawn to power and sees masculinity as power. For Mars and Scorpio, life and love are always about power. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, Mars in Scorpio. I'm Joy. We finish the Mars series next time with Mars in Pisces to come.